and welcome to this special Election 2016 edition of Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Tonight's show is a debate sponsored by the Arizona Citizens Clean Elections Commission. We will hear from the 5 candidates competing for the Arizona Corporation Commission's 3 open seats. As with all of Arizona Horizon's debates, this is not a formal exercise. It's an open exchange of ideas, an opportunity for give and take between candidates for one of the state's most important offices. As such, interjections and even interruptions are allowed, provided that all sides get a fair shake, and we'll do our best to see that that happens. The Arizona Corporation Commission is best known for regulating utilities, including rate setting, but the commission has other regulatory obligations, and its members serve in executive, judicial, and legislative capacities. Joining us for tonight's debate in alphabetical order, incumbent Commissioner Robert Bob Burns, Democrat and former lawmaker Tom Chabon, Republican and former Chandler Mayor Boyd Dunn, former Corporation Commissioner Democrat William Bill Mundell, and former Republican State Speaker of the House and current incumbent Corporation Commissioner Andy Tobin. Each candidate will now give a 1-minute opening statement with the order determined by random selection. Closing statements will be given in reverse order. Okay, we begin with Bob Burns.
Good evening, Ted. Thank you. Thank Clean Elections for this opportunity. It's a pretty exciting time at the commission and the things that are happening especially in the power generation world. Also, as many people know, I'm very concerned about some of the excitement that's happened in some of the election cycles that have taken place, especially 2014. I think that the perception that APS, a regulated utility, spent in the neighborhood of $3.2 million in that campaign is a reason for concern, because any kind of undue influence on a commissioner who is a regulator creates a problem for the ratepayers.
All right, thank you very much. For our next opening statement, we turn to Bill Mundell.
Thank you. I've had the honor and the privilege to serve in all branches of Arizona's government. I was appointed by a Democratic mayor as the presiding judge in Chandler. I was appointed by 2 Republican governors to statewide offices, and then I was elected twice to the Corporation Commission, serving as its chairman. Thought I'd retired from politics, but I became so concerned about the unethical and possible criminal behavior at the commission. We know the FBI is investigating the commission, APS, looking at illegal campaign contributions in the 2014 election. We need to have commissioners that are concerned about protecting consumers from politically powerful monopolies. I did that for 9 years, and I hope to have the opportunity to do that again. I look forward to this debate this evening. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. For our next opening statement, we turn to Andy Tobin.
Oh, we're going to skip Boyd?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can jump right in there, but that's okay.
I thought you were number 3. Are you not number 3?
You said you were going in alphabetical order?
No, we're going by the orders we picked earlier.
I'll be happy to.
Okay, great.
Well, thank
Please.
you. Well, hi, everybody. My name's Andy Tobin. Happy Yom Kippur. And if you notice I'm sniffling, it has nothing to do with another debate we're all familiar with. I just got my flu shot today, and the last time I did that, it didn't go so well. So I'm married 30 years. I have 5 children and 2 grandchildren. My mom and dad just had their 60th anniversary here in June. So I'm excited to be here as well. I want to thank the Clean Elections Commission for putting this together. I would share with you that this is an exciting time, as Commissioner Burns spoke of. I just left here earlier today from a company called Fluidic Energy. They're out in Scottsdale. This is an Arizona company, and guess what they're doing? They're building storage units. In fact, they'll have 6,000 built next year. You know, my focus to move technology and advance it so that what we end up with is a great opportunity to combine solar with storage to help reduce our peak and to be able to better advance Arizona's solar footprint in the world. So thank you for having me here tonight. I look forward to a good debate. Thanks,
All right,
Ted.
thank you very much. Our next opening statement, Boyd Dunn.
Thank you, Ted, and thank you for watching. My name is Boyd Dunn, and yes, we have some challenges at the Arizona Corporation Commission. And I feel I have unique qualifications and experience to be able to address those challenges as a member of the commission. 10 months ago, I retired as a judge in the Arizona Superior Court and completed 37 years of being a judge in the Superior Court, also an assistant attorney general for the state of Arizona as a trial attorney. I feel that experience will allow me certainly to understand the law that's involved in the Corporation Commission, but more importantly, to treat that process as a quasi-judicial process so that we can make certain that we make our decisions based on the facts presented, not by any sort of preconceived notions or undue influence or anything of that nature. Also, the other aspect I have in terms of experience is 23 years in public service, 16 years on the City Council and as mayor of the City of Chandler, where I dealt with establishing rates for the citizens of Chandler, the fourth largest city, and did so in a way that we had the lowest rates in the valley. So I truly want to continue representing the consumer.
All right, thank you very much. Our final closing statement comes from Tom Shaven.
Thank you, Ted, and it's good to be here this evening. I think we need to reflect a little bit on the opening of Commissioner Burns and the opening of Bill Mendel. If you are an APS customer, think about every time you paid your bill, APS took a little bit of that money, put it into a dark money campaign to invest over $3 million to elect the commission they wanted. First, they went after the Republicans they didn't want to see the two succeed, and then they went after the Democrats. And it's wrong. The integrity of the commission is at stake. We know they're under investigation by the FBI. We know that there is a grand jury that's been impaneled, and we know that records have been subpoenaed by the grand jury. That's what's critical, the integrity of the commission. That's what this race is all about.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Let's get it started. Bob, when you got it started, right off the bat talking about really the integrity of the commission. Is the integrity of the Arizona Corporation Commission at stake?
Well, I believe when a regulated utility spends at the rate that APS is perceived to have spent in 2014, integrity is at risk. Now, some have criticized me for supposedly accusing the candidates. Well, the candidates in 2014 could not.
2012, right?
No, 2014. 2014 could not legally know what was being spent in these independent expenditure campaigns. But the utility obviously knew if they were the ones that were spending it, and they were moving that money through nonprofit organizations that did not have to identify their donors. And so the voters and the ratepayers, or the critical ones that did not know for sure where the money was coming from, and so that to me is a serious issue. Slippery slope. I think if it's allowed to continue, it gets worse.
Should the public know if a regulated utility contributes to a regulator?
Well, they certainly should. We know that APS spent at least $3.2 million to get two of the commissioners elected in the last election in 2014. And Ted, it really isn't about us around this table. It's about the voters, the people of Arizona, being able to make an informed decision about how commissioners are getting elected. If the voters want to vote for commissioners that have been supported by APS, that's certainly their constitutional right. But they should not be. And let me back up. For 100 years, from 1912 until 2 years ago, APS did not get involved in commission races. It was a fireable offense for the CEO or any other employee of APS or Pinnacle West to get involved in a commission race. That all changed 2 years ago with at least $3 million in secret dark money that did not have to be disclosed to the voters.
You buying this scenario, Andy Tobin?
Yeah, I came out from the very beginning and said anybody who is regulated or unregulated, if they have business at the commission, they shouldn't be spending any money. I don't care.
I disagree with you. You
I don't
didn't
care
say
if they-
that originally. In fact, here on Horizon,
Yeah.
you defended APS and said they had a right to keep it secret. So you haven't said that from the beginning.
Respond, please.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to. There is law that allows them, and this was to their parent company. But I've always been right. I mean, Ted, I've got the least amount of money in this thing than anybody. So I've taken no money from APS. Ann Kirkpatrick 2 years ago took money from APS, so I don't even have a relationship with that from 2014. 2014. I just think that anybody, I don't know where Bill's coming off, I guess we can go look at the tapes. But I
did
well,
look
I'm
at the
glad
tapes.
you did.
And
I'll
you
go
said
back
that
and look at
APS
'em.
has the right to not have to disclose the money
Well,
that they
might-
spent
I
in
think that's-
2014.
Well, I think that's the law, Bill.
It's not the law.
So,
It's
but
not.
you asked me a question.
It's not the law.
Ted,
Quickly,
but what I
please.
said to you is that I don't think that anybody who has any business at the Corporation Commission, especially in the docket, whether regulated or unregulated, should be spending on it. And that's what my opinion had always been.
I think for clarification, I think we all agree on this table that because of Citizens United, the Supreme Court decision, that these third-party organizations that may represent interests of solar in whatever case may contribute. But what we're talking about is transparency. And the key is that we want to know when that occurs. They may have the right for that political speech, but how do we know? And especially when the legislature passed Senate Bill 1516, that made it very clear that they didn't want any further disclosure from those recipients. I think there's two ways. One, the shareholders of the corporation itself or the utility may demand it. Apparently, they haven't done that.
No.
Or secondly, and this is why I
Well,
support.
there's an
this is
investigation. They're investigating
Well, this is why
internally,
I
so,
support Commissioner Burns' subpoena, because he had a right to do that. And by doing that, I knew very well that that would enter into the legal arena. Now we have the court there for the opportunity to resolve this issue in the future.
Tom Shaven.
Let's talk about two people who've taken this issue on consistently from the beginning. We support Commissioner Burns. Let's reinvent the wheel. He's issued a subpoena to both APS and Pinnacle West for their records. The balance of the commission, at the very beginning, at the outset, tried to quash his subpoena. When he hired an investigator and developed a contract for that, to investigate that, the commission obstructed that and canceled the contract. It will take 3 votes, according to the Attorney General, and Bob, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Attorney General had to weigh in and protect his right to subpoena APS, and the Attorney General said, okay, as an individual commissioner, you can issue a subpoena to APS, but it takes 3 votes to open up the books at Pinnacle West. So, Ted, that's the question. Where are the 3 votes to open up the books at APS? We can talk about transparency if we want, but there are 3 consistent people with a consistent position to do that.
Ted, is it is before the court now. And that issue is going to have to be decided by the court, especially with Senate Bill 1560. And that's great. From my perspective as a former judge, that's the opportunity. And I believe we have an opportunity that APS could resolve this issue if they wanted to and agree that transparency will exist in the future if we seize this opportunity. And that agreement could be approved by the court and become a court order. That's
Boy,
the
you
opportunity we
originally
have.
said you were concerned about litigation in the debate of the Republican primary. You said, "Oh, I don't want to have litigation. I'm concerned about that." Now you've changed your position, and it's very misleading because Pinnacle West, the holding company of APS, as the Republican Attorney General said, you need 3 votes. Andy, you've had 2 opportunities to support Commissioner Burns. First, with the subpoena. You've never signed the subpoena for APS, number 1. And number 2, not only did you vote no on the special investigator of APS and the other utilities on spending at the commission, you led the charge. So will you sign the subpoena with Commissioner Burns?
And let Andy take, he spoke directly to Andy Tobin.
You're the leader here. I don't have to be answering these questions. I'm not being accused of anything. What I would share with you is that I was the one who told Commissioner Burns from the beginning to send a subpoena out, and I supported an attorney to defend him. I didn't agree with Mr. Burns in bringing in this scope of work for a lawyer from somewhere else. I did not agree with that, but I was the first one to stand up and say, yes, subpoena them and let's go through the process, and I supported that.
Please.
I've supported the subpoena. I was one of the first to support the fact that Commissioner Burns needed to have his legal fees covered because he was operating within the scope of his duties. But I've always expected this to line up with the courts because APS would certainly want the law to be clarified, especially the impact of Senate Bill 1560.
Hold on one minute. I don't want APS to get their clarification. I want to know the power and authority of this commission and back it to the hilt. The people deserve this. Look, Boyd, as there is, and poor Bob, you're just sitting there, just sitting there.
He's letting us figure it out.
Here it is.
Oh, we support Bob on the subpoena.
At the opening, you said the commission has a legislative role.
Yes.
So it's just not all quasi-judicial. We're going to sit back and watch the courts settle this issue. No, this commission needs to establish a rule that is clear. If you are a government-created monopoly, and like with APS customers, they can't take the wires from their homes and cook it with anybody else, you must reveal every single political contribution, your activity at the legislatures, you must reveal it to everybody and especially to your customers.
And Boyd, I'm
I
a
think
former,
that'll take the help of the court in order that to occur.
I'm a former judge also.
Yeah.
Just like you.
City court.
Okay, whatever. The Constitution, though, we know, presiding judge of the Chandler Court.
You were. Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
We know the Constitution. We know the viewers know the Constitution takes precedent over statutes. The state constitution allows the commission to look at the books and records of regulated utilities. We're not talking about Apple or Ford or Chevy. We're talking about a government-created monopoly, and the Constitution takes precedent over 1516. So, and as Tom was saying, as a commissioner for 9 years, we're not just judges. We also have legislative roles when we pass rules, and we're also executive branch, as noted in the beginning of this debate. And so you can take a position. You refuse to. You refuse to take a position. Do you support his subpoena? Would you sign it? And do you support a subpoena against Pinnacle West?
I've supported Bob's subpoena. And the bottom line is, and obviously, the Constitution creates the Arizona Corporation Commission as a separate entity. Now, the legislature
Branch of government, not a
okay,
separate entity.
Okay, branch of government. And the legislature may feel differently about the interpretation of Senate Bill 1516, but the bottom line is we have a legal action now. This is an opportunity
I agree with that.
to clarify the law, to make it clear that
But what's
we do
your
have that
position?
authority.
What's your position? You're not a judge in this regard. Look, when I was on the commission, I was sued twice. Once by Enron, and I could take a position. By Enron, they sued the commission over deregulation because we wouldn't deregulate. Then when we passed the renewable energy standard, we were sued again. And so you get to take a position. You don't just get to say, oh, I'm a judge,
go
I
ahead.
can't take a position.
Respond, please.
That's what you're doing.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Come on.
Okay.
Show a little respect.
All right. Bob Burns.
Yes,
Let's
sir.
get to you. Since he's kind of opened his can of worms here, are you hearing anything from anyone that sounds different than what you've heard before?
Well, maybe, but I'm not sure I want to go there.
Well, why not? Go ahead. That's why
No,
we're here.
I'm trying to get to the bottom of the amount of money and the way that it was spent in the 2014 election. And I think the way that it was spent is critical. What was the mechanism that was used by APS, Pinnacle West, if in fact they spent that money? The commission needs to know the mechanism that was used if we are going to, the commission is going to write rules that will make sure that that reporting is done. And the reporting needs to be done at the time of the spend so that the voters and the ratepayers know who's doing what.
APS says anonymous donations, that's a First Amendment right, and you have no right to know how they spend their money.
Well, I disagree. I don't think that is part of the constitutional right. The constitutional right is to spend it, but not to hide it. They have a responsibility, and I believe the Supreme Court justices made statements to the effect that it was up to the states to take care of the disclosure issues. And that's the commission's responsibility, I believe, in Arizona because of our jurisdiction over the
We
utilities.
can usurp the legislature?
I was going to say,
No,
has
no,
the
what are you
legislature not
talking about?
already
No,
talked
the
about this?
Listen, this is the fourth branch of government that regulates government-created monopolies. The legislature has no role in this.
None.
But you quote,
None.
You
None.
quote the Attorney General on one hand, and then you say it doesn't fit on the other hand, Tom.
What are you
Well,
talking
you said
about?
the Attorney General said you need 3, but then you said you don't really need him in your statement here. You can go do whatever
well,
you
let
want.
me explain that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
I'm
so
just-
the Attorney
go
General
ahead.
said Mr. Burns had every right to subpoena APS, and
Which I
APS is
agreed.
compelled to reveal those records, right? And then, secondly, the Attorney General said that if you want to open up the records of Pinnacle West to figure out if through the parent company they spent that money, then you need 3 votes.
Right.
All right. So one, Mr. Mendel, Mr. Chabin, and Mr. Burns will give those 3 votes to open it up. And why do they have to do it, Ted? Because we're not talking about opening up the books of Thoroughbred Chevrolet. You can buy a Chevrolet from any dealership you want to. You don't even have to buy Chevrolet, you can buy Ford. But you have to buy your electricity from the government-created monopoly.
At the heart here is the question. Should the public know if a utility's parent company is spending money to elect someone who will be regulating the company?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's say we found out. Let's say for sure we know $3.2 million spent. APS, just as clear as a bell, reporting right there on the bottom line. Does it make a difference?
As I said in my opening, or when you first question, it's important to the voters. So the voters know. We're talking disclosure. Citizens United just lifted the caps. And as Commissioner Burns noted, it didn't say you get to keep it secret. All it did is lift the cap. It just lifted the caps, and our Constitution takes precedent over Senate Bill 1516. We know the Constitution is the higher authority. And the legislature can't pass legislation taking away the authority.
And all I'm saying is that we have the opportunity now, knowing very well APS is going to file a lawsuit. They did with a subpoena, they'll do with their subpoena.
What are they hiding?
And I just think it's a great opportunity for us to be able to resolve those issues, clarify what the legislature meant in 1560, make certain that they don't amend the statute immediately to try to include the
But what's your
corporation.
position on Pinnacle West? What's your position on Pinnacle West if it takes 3 votes?
And the other thing,
You won't take a position.
listen,
And neither will Andy.
I took a
don't
position.
On Pinnacle
Hold
West,
on, let's
not
one at a time.
APS.
One at a time, please.
What's your
I did-
position
I
on
didn't
Pinnacle
vote-
West?
I didn't vote yes for it. Of course I took a
Oh, so you're against looking at the books and records of Pinnacle West, the holding
I
company?
have shared many times that I think that is the law of the land. And I supported Bob Burns' subpoena, and I supported paying for the attorney to do it for him. And now
For
we're here
APS, not Pinnacle
you,
West.
You
He's
canceled
going to
you
now-
canceled the contract for the investigator
I
he
did.
hired.
I shared
Well,
that
why
with
do you
you.
do that if you
Because
want
Because
transparency?
that scope of work and where it came from was a problem for all of the commissioners, not just me.
No, it wasn't for the Commissioner Burns that wanted to find out the information.
Well,
It
separate
isn't
if.
for future Commissioner Mundell. It isn't for
Well,
Mr.
let it-
Chabin.
But there's 4 other commissioners that are there, despite what you might want to think, who disagree with Bob fundamentally on whether that works or not.
So
And that's
4
why
others,
I-
meaning you.
I agree. I told you from
Why,
the beginning.
Okay,
why
all
don't
right,
you
all right.
want to know?
I do want to know, but I don't want anybody contributing to any of the campaigns, period. And we're okay if it
No,
seems
no.
to me that it's okay if people
Andy, you're
pay
not
as long as
answering
they're
the question.
disclosing.
Why didn't you want to know? Why didn't you support the investigator?
Because you're talking 2 different pieces. The investigator that Bob hired came from what all the other commissioners besides Bob felt was someone who was tied to solar and was compromised. And that was a problem with everyone. And he went and hired a lawyer without going through the process that I thought existed to have, for contracting. So we said, let's have a different conversation about a scope of work. And I shared with Bob again.
Okay, hold on a second, please.
I
want Bob to respond what you just heard. Is that what happened?
Well, I think when the Attorney General said that I had the authority to act on my own, I should have been able to act on my own, and so I did. I can't believe that the other commissioners didn't realize that I was going through this process. It was taking months to get this all worked out and get a scope of work. I believe that if we would have had the expert to do the investigation, this guy is one of the top regulatory lawyers in the country. He is not tied to solar, as was indicated. He's not tied to the utilities. He would have, I believe, gotten to the bottom of what was going on very quickly. We had a deadline of December 31st for a report. We still had subpoena in the scope of work. It was still there if needed, but we may not have even needed it. And we would have found out quicker, cheaper, and a lot more accurately what had happened in 2014.
All right, gentlemen.
That's my belief.
We could talk about this for the rest of the evening, but there are other issues. There are other issues. A question. Bill Mundell, we'll start with you. Should solar customers get retail credit for surplus power?
Well, as you know, Ted, there's a matter pending. And in our judicial capacity, we have to be very careful how we answer those types of questions. And so there's a docket open to look at the cost and value of solar. the concern I have, and it was noted in the Republic, the front page of the Republic, that the study may be rigged. There was conversations between APS and the RUCO consultant. So I want to see, I think we need an independent study and sort of start over again to look at the cost and benefit of solar.
The study started in January, almost 3 years ago.
And it was put
Now
on
we're gonna-
hold. It
now
was
we're
put on
gonna-
hold,
Well,
Andy.
I didn't put on hold.
Well,
I accelerated it.
no, it was put
3
on
years
hold.
ago, which is perfect.
And you know why it was put on
bureaucratic.
hold? Because APS asked that be put on hold so they could impose the fee on solar homeowners. And when they had to pull that, then we went back to the cost of study. So it was APS that put it on hold because they control the commission.
It just came out the other day. The RUE just came out the other day. So now we actually have a report that I'm reviewing that speaks to the real value of what rooftop solar is. And that's where we need to head, Ted, because we can't advance new technologies until we figure out what these rooftop solar values are and what our energy efficiencies are. Tesla themselves
Yes.
agree with that.
Look, could we give some good news? Net metering is what we're talking about, and that started in 2010. Because of net metering, Arizona now is ranked third in terms of rooftop solar. We've brought in 10,000 jobs. 36,000 rooftops have that. 450 companies have been formed. That's the good news.
Okay,
Now-
if that's the good news, can solar remain viable without net metering?
That's the whole purpose of the study. To
Well, no,
compare
but
the-
I'm asking you.
Well,
What do you think?
Well, I think this is where we're going to have to talk about the issue itself, and I'm probably I feel the strongest about not committing until I hear the facts. But that's the whole issue. I think net metering could continue. It's continued in other states like New York and things of that sort. It can be modified. It can represent whatever the vision is of the Corporation Commission in terms of what that solar should be, weighing again the costs and the benefits and realizing that things may have changed because of this success.
Is solar
Ted, I just
viable
wanna-
without net metering?
I just want to jump in for a second. I was chairman of the commission in 2001 and 2002 when we started requiring the utilities to get a portion of their renewable energy from solar, wind, geothermal, et cetera. I was also on the commission in 2006. So all those benefits that you just described, Boyd, I was there with my colleagues who voted for the renewable energy standard. What's happened, though, since then is the utilities have been gradually chipping away at it. Not directly, because they don't want a headline where it says commission reduces it from 15 to 12 to 10. So they've been doing it with their demand charges, with the hookup fees, with looking at net metering. So all those benefits you talked about is a result of the hard work that myself and other commissioners did in the past.
Tom Chabin.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Let's let Tom, please.
So
We just have
your
to look at
question.
those factors again, obviously.
All right. So the question is it viable?
Yes.
All right. So my question is, let's just look at APS for a moment. Where's the stress? They are crying about the $100,000 a day they're losing, right, Ted? So 3 years ago, we know they made $380 million. 2 years by their annual report, 2 years ago, 406. And this year, this previous year, they made $460 million. Now they want an 8% increase on their customers. You know, I do a tale of two utilities, Salt River Project, APS. Salt River Project, both of them have 1.2 million customers, just announced a 3% decrease in their rates. APS wants 8% more. Listen, the CEO
Of course, solar is drained
hold on,
now in
the
SRP
CEO
territory because they changed the way they do
Salt
business
River
with
Project,
solar, so
Salt
fewer
River
solar
Project
people
CEO makes $1.2 million a year. The top 5 people at APS make $20 million, and the CEO there makes $1 million a month.
Okay,
So what
I-
is this? What is this hammer when you're making $460 million
Right.
on the customers who are trying to save money?
Okay,
That's all that solar
we got
is.
that point,
That's a
but
good point in terms of what SRP has done for solar rooftop in the state. They have basically ended it. So, you know, the business has now shifted to APS because of the policy. Now they have some new board members, and maybe that will change. But, you know, these companies are different in that respect.
does this, what Tom Chabin was describing, people making this amount of money, the corporation making this amount, does this sound like a corporation that needs to look again at net metering, that needs demand charges to you?
Well, again, we got to be careful about what we say on the value of solar docket. But and I just got the copy as well, and it's close to 200 pages, so there's a little bit to look at. But I'm hopeful that certain things are included in there, and one of the things that has troubled me for some time, I spent a couple years on the Central Arizona project, so I got to know a little bit about the water flow in the river. We are in a situation where a shortage is about to be declared on the Colorado River. If that shortage is declared, Arizona is the first one that has to take a cut. Now, we're also, I believe, sitting on a possible increase in our population growth, which means more water is going to be needed, right? So, the way that we generate power now through the thermal process uses a lot of water. Solar, wind, fuel cells, a number of the renewables don't use water. And so I think that's something that needs to be considered. I don't know how much of it got considered in this value of solar docket. I want to take a look at that.
All
But
right.
those are the kind of things that go beyond the net metering viability question in my mind.
Bill, is net metering fair to those who can't or don't have solar power? If you have solar power and you're getting refunds on your surcharges, you're getting money back on your surcharges. I live in a condo, or I live in an area where I just can't afford solar or can't have solar. If you aren't paying the same that I'm paying, is that fair? Or eventually, would the corporation say, well, geez, we gotta find the money somewhere. Let's take it out of Ted because we're too busy paying Bill for his surplus power. Does that make sense to you?
Well, that's the talking points of the utilities.
Yes.
But what they don't tell you is, the other side of the coin, is that if people put solar on their homes, the utilities don't have to build infrastructure. That's sort of they don't explain it. The way rates are set for monopolies is when they build stuff. If they build a fossil fuel plant, if they build a transmission line, if they build a substation, if they build a transmission line to your house, they get to put that in rate base and raise everybody's rates, solar and non-solar alike. So yes, solar rooftop benefits the non-solar customers.
Please.
Ted, 24 other states have decided that very question. It is a balancing act because it is an issue of fairness. Now, obviously, I think most of us want to incent renewables to some degree. It's a matter of degree. And that's the whole purpose of the study, to determine exactly what that balance should be, because those who do not choose not to have solar, may end up paying a lot more for their electricity because of the success of rooftop solar.
Do you agree with that?
There's no stress now. Let me describe net metering as I understand it, because I don't think it's quite, if you will, as simple as maybe you outlined.
I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah, for us.
Yeah.
Right, I can
Yeah.
understand. For us. But no, but if I have solar on my home and I produce an extra kilowatt hour, when I need it, I can get it back. If at the end of the year, and usually the reconciliation is in October, I have produced more kilowatt hours, I'm going to be paid a wholesale rate, Ted. I'm not going to be paid the retail rate. And when I produce the kilowatt hour that's extra in that total, where does it go? It goes to my next door neighbor. Now, who gets the check for that kilowatt hour? APS. I don't.
You don't, but I don't get a reprieve either.
Well, how does it hurt you? What,
You're saying that people that can
Ted,
get.
are you running for the corporation
I'm just
commission or
trying
me?
to simplify
You know,
things.
it-
Okay,
yeah.
Andy, you tell me. Again, I'm trying to give the APS talking point here and get a response.
Well, I don't care
I
about
gave
the
you one,
APS
Ted.
Well,
talking point.
some people do because they think that it's not fair for folks who don't have solar.
Well, what
that they
is
can't
not
get net
fair is
metering.
for them to change the deal. That's why we grandfathered the rates. So that's what's not fair. What's not fair is having this demand charge without people knowing how to work on it. Those things aren't fair. So those are the things we've been killing. So along the way, with I think going back to Commissioner Burns' statement, we started this conversation out about water. I think I answered as well as we could the net metering. I think people should be paid and compensated if they give somebody their cup back. So there's a number somewhere. And that's what this value of solar docket was for. We need to be able to give a number back to somebody. So what's going on today with our water crisis in Arizona, for the time that Mr. Mundell was there in the commission and all these years, we've never figured out what the water losses are, all these companies that are out there, 300 some odd companies.
We did some calculations. We started the first now database. 5.42 billion gallons of water that we allow, even as a commission, because we give them certain amounts of value in what they can lose. It is crushing us, 5.42 billion gallons a year. We have to start getting our small water companies back in the game to help with this crisis that we have with losing our water storage. And that's all part of it. Commissioner Burns is right. We don't need more things using water to help us with energy. We need things like solar. We need things like wind, which is why we now have SunZia project from New Mexico, a wind project for $2 billion. It's now available. You know, if they can put this package together, that was the deciding vote. Those bring more renewables into the process, more players into the process to keep Arizona, especially
Did
rural
you want to
areas.
respond to
Well,
this?
two things. The grandfathering started on solar homeowners before Andy got to the commission, number one. And then number two, I want to repeat what I said earlier. If the utilities don't have to build fossil fuel plants, then everyone's rates go down, solar and non-solar alike, because again, that's how rates are set for monopolies.
Do you agree with that?
Well, I don't think we'll build another fossil fuel plant. We're not going to build another coal plant. We're basically trying to keep the coal plants open. I don't think we could afford to build another coal-producing plant. I'm on the a commission for the Arizona Power Authority that deals with the power that comes out of the Hoover Dam. It is a crisis situation. That the Hoover Dam is making less power than it did before. If you look at the levels of Lake Mead, we're being very cautious in that. So obviously, you know, all these things are connected in terms of the power. And last retreat we talked about putting solar around the Hoover Dam as another renewable energy that represents what Hoover Dam originally did. So there's a lot of possibilities, a lot of diversity out there.
I want to shift gears here. Tom Chabin, what constitutes, do you think, conflict of interest while on the Corporation Commission?
I think the standard should be high. And Andy, you're my friend. But, you know, if a judge has someone in the family that's working for one of the parties in a case in front of you, the Superior Court judge simply assigns another judge. Well, you can't do that with the commission. There's only 5 of us. And there was an ethical standard that said if you had someone in your immediate family working for a regulated entity under the commission, they either had to quit or you had to resign. Susan Bittersmith had to resign because of a conflict of a different nature. And when Mr. Tobin was sworn in, he was told, I don't think you're even eligible. That's according to your testimony before the legislature.
She said that I wasn't eligible to be appointed, but that was one opinion. The other opinion disagreed with her.
All right.
So did I.
So all you did then was go down to the legislature, got a bill amended, got it through the House, to the Senate, back to the House, to the governor, that lowered the ethical standards of the commission, and now you can vote.
Andy?
Well, Ted, I just got to tell you, I don't know if you think you're Candy Crowley or not, but this seems like a setup question to me.
Oh my goodness!
It
No,
does.
no, it's not a setup
It is
question,
a setup
sir.
question.
No.
We have water issues.
We
to
had
have
a
conversation
corporation
about.
commissioner
And I'm going to
resign for
respond.
conflict
This
of
is
interest.
not that. This
No,
is, and you know
then-
it is
then
not.
it's not that.
And so my son-in-law gets fired from Solar City, and that's still not enough for you. And I'm going to tell you. So what you're saying is that Susan Bittersmith had to resign. Susan Bittersmith was receiving compensation. When I went to the legislature, and by the way, that was written by folks who were at the Corporation Commission, those lawyers. When I went to see them and bring that over, what this says is that a working class person who has no manager value, isn't involved in budgets, shouldn't be asked to resign from their job if someone in their family is running for office. Everybody really agreed with that. In fact, the Democrats did too until the swords came out. So I share with you that there is no conflict of interest going on with me at all, especially now that they fired my son-in-law. So I hope a lot of you are thrilled. But at the end of the day, I have never been bought by anybody. And APS has no money in my account for anybody. Yet, Ted, here we sit at this commission. We have 2 commissioners who are on clean elections trying to share with everybody how high on the hill they are. And they're giving money to their own party to run their campaign, $25,000 apiece. So your taxpayer money Going to them is going to the Democrat State Party. I've not made any of those contributions, Ted. I think I've got $8,000 actually in a campaign.
I hear you. I hear you.
I'm offended by you bringing that up because.
Well,
this
I'm
is
sorry that you're offended by
I
that,
am.
but voters
I
want to
am.
know about
Well, then you should
conflict of
know that-
interest.
You should know the facts. That my son-in-law was fired anyway.
The
And if
facts.
that
the-
makes you happy,
if
then I'm
it-
glad.
Then
for that.
you're welcome to bring out the facts.
I
But
am, and
please
here
don't
we are.
suggest that this is somehow a biased
It
affair.
is because
Well, then you're
decided
incorrect,
to play
sir.
to the Democrat.
You are incorrect, sir.
You're incorrect. You've
Let's talk
decided
about
to
the
play.
facts, Andy.
You've
Let's
decided
talk
to
I'm
play
sorry.
to the
I'm
Democrat
sorry, but,
talking points
no, I'm
tonight,
not-
which are both about the APS
I want to get in
issue
here for a
and my
second, Andy.
son-in-law.
Andy, I want to get
Please.
in here for a second.
Sure,
You've taken $1,000 from the railroad.
I did. I
And it's
looked-
a regulated
Right.
monopoly. It's just like taking $1,000 from APS. It doesn't matter. They've got a case
Well, I
pending.
noticed Mr. Burns had done that, and we didn't see, and I did not see a docket. And I've told
It doesn't
folks
matter if there's a docket or not. They're a regulated utility. It'd be just like
you're-
it just be like that's your excuse. That's what I'm saying. That was your excuse in the newspaper.
So I've got $8,000 in total. You
And you
guys
took
have
mo-
got $200,000,
and you
I've
took
got a
money. Wait a
$1,000
minute.
mistake.
And you took money from the APS lobbyist, who's the mastermind of the dark money. You took money from him also, $3,000.
Who is that?
I'm not going to name his name. I'll tell you afterwards.
Well, all right,
Let me put a
please.
positive spin on this. I think not to accuse anything of anyone. You know, the Arizona Republic called me the peacemaker. Maybe I'll try a little peacemaking here. I think the idea of establishing a code of ethics for the commission is an excellent one. There are commissions all across the country that have code of ethics. Cities have code of ethics. It can apply to the commissioners as well as the staff. And most importantly, I mean, when you run for the Arizona Corporation Commission, it's very similar to running as a judge in the outer counties where you still have to run as a judge. The problem is, where do you get your money in terms of running your campaign? Typically from those who are going to appear before you, i.e. attorneys. So there are code of conducts that I think Article 4 for judges to look at, especially when they become a judge, as to what they should and should not do in the next campaign. Code of ethics could come a long way in defining what the expectations are of their corporation.
The original question was, what constitutes a conflict of interest on the Corporation Commission? That was the question. How do you
Well,
respond?
and I think I would agree that there ought to be a code of ethics. But the code of ethics, I believe, is weakened, significantly weakened, if we allow the utility to contribute in millions of dollars in a campaign and then not report. Because the people that will be attracted as this moves forward, because the money amount is likely to go up, will be people who really won't care about a code of ethics, in my belief. So I think we have to have both. We need a code of ethics, and we need a reporting disclosure system for the utilities. Now, if there is ethical misbehavior around the commission, I think some of the things that concern me are people that are not working for the utility directly. They're contracting with the utility. And they are entertaining commissioners, in some cases, possibly. And if that's the case, I think that's an area where that's out of bounds. That should not be occurring. The commissioner goes to lunch, the commissioner needs to pick up his own part of the bill.
You agree with that?
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. I was just going to say APS has 23 outside lobbyists. 23. That doesn't even include their in-house government affairs or their public relations department. 23 that are paid for by ratepayers. That comes from ratepayer and customer money. So I agree wholeheartedly. And in fact, Tom, we've put forth a code of ethics.
Right, precisely. So we put out a code of ethics that outlined exactly what Commissioner Burns has stated. And we've gone beyond that. We've said, you know, if you travel somewhere, you shouldn't use a limousine. You shouldn't go first class. You shouldn't be visiting with the CEO of APS at the Phoenix Country Club having a meal. All these things have happened at the commission.
Do you agree? Do you think those ideas make sense to you?
Yeah, part of what, after we had the Bob Burns issue that we didn't hire that lawyer, one of the reasons is that we created a scope of work amongst all the commissioners. Oddly enough, it included what's right and proper? What are the guidelines for an election? And what are the proper ways to deal with some of these conflicts? So that's all part of that process, but we never quite get to that, Ted.
And I think
You
it
get stuck on these pieces. Go ahead.
I think it has to be broad enough to even include potential parties that appear before the Corporation Commission. Obviously, it's APS, but we have a lot of interplayers. And right now, the larger one is solar companies, and obviously they're making disclosure. But the question is, should we not take the same position? Because the concern I have, where there's a conflict of interest, there could be a request to recuse yourself from a case depending on whatever relationship, whatever we received in our campaigns and things of that sort. If we don't solve this issue, Ted, then I see the day when there's a constitutional amendment proposed by the legislature to have the corporation commissioners appointed. If we cannot try to control our House and even reach out to APS and everyone else to make it clear this is what our expectations are, we're going to lose the confidence of the citizens, and they could very well approve a constitutional amendment by a vote to change this whole process. I don't see that necessarily happen.
So Boyd, so we reach out to APS and tell them, just don't do that. There should be a rule that they can't. And that's the legislative, no, because, I mean, just stay away. Look, you guys be nice. Don't take us to lunch anymore. Don't do this. Yeah, so, no, it should be a rule. And there should be penalties to the utilities if that, or anybody governing the securities groups.
For 100 years, they didn't get involved in commission races. From statehood, from 1912 until 2 years ago, APS stayed out of commission races. It was a fireable offense from the CEO all through the organ at 6,000. That all changed with all this dark money, at least $3.2 million in secret, undisclosed money.
All right, I want to get to our
And
final
ideally,
question.
That's what we want to
Yes.
occur, obviously, for the utilities to agree, because Tucson Electric, others have stayed out, so obviously that
All
will
right.
be our goal.
Last question here, because we're getting close to closing statement times. Greenhouse gases, are they warming the planet? Is human activity at play here?
Yes and yes.
And what do we do about it?
Well, I think that look, Ted, in many respects, Commissioner Burns said something during the course of our discussions and debates that I found really interesting. And that was the advances in solar and renewable energy now penciling out to be as inexpensive as coal. Maybe the market's going to take care of it. Maybe the advances in renewables, and I just simply think that 30 years from
Did I
now,
just hear a Democrat say let the market take care of it?
I think it will. without,
That's right.
no, I mean,
That's right. Let the market take care of it.
well,
I
now,
agree with you, Tom.
well, if the market says to dirty the sky and choke us all, I'm not for that. But my point is, and I think technology and where we're going. The question is, are we going to have utilities that are going to obstruct it because it messes with their business model?
Okay, Bob Burns, is global warming happening due to greenhouse gases, due to human activity?
Well, I'd say that there is a climate change taking place since day one. There's always been a climate change. Now, sometimes it's warming, sometimes it's cooling, I guess.
Is it warming now in an accelerating manner because
That
of human
seems to be
activity?
the evidence now. It seems to be getting warmer. Whether or not, or what the impact is, I say that there may be some impact from what human beings are doing. I don't know. I really do not know what the level of that impact is. There are arguments from professionals, experts on both sides of that issue. And so I'm not qualified to answer that question. And so I think we need to do everything we can to make things better. One of the things that I would point out is I believe the earth has a great healing capacity. I mean, we had a river once in this country that would burn. And when the rules were changed and things were taken care of there, it's my understanding that river is now a healthy river. So the level of impact, I just don't know.
Probably one of the issues that really involves the Corporation Commission is dealing with coal. Obviously, the production of carbons and carbon dioxides and things of that sort. And this is where I think you're correct, Tom, in terms of the market is changing things because of the cheapness of natural gas and other things of that nature. Some of those furnaces are being closed. But this is the issue. Even the EPA wants to keep the Navajo plant open because of the jobs that are involved, 500 jobs, mostly of the Navajo Nation. But that's the power plant that actually provides power to the Central Arizona project. So it's this idea of, I think, eventually, with the increased renewables and the market situation, you're going to have less and less impact from the coal. But it's probably not going to be here tomorrow, but it's certainly lessening as we proceed.
What do you think about this issue?
Well, I guess yes and yes. Make sure I got my answers correct. But I would just say we all believe in the market. And just to remind people, when I was on the commission in 2003 and 4, natural gas was $13 and $14. It's now $2 and $3. So we just need to make sure that going forward, we're cognizant of that. I would say, I thought when Bob was talking earlier about solar doesn't use water. When I was on the commission, I turned down a power plant in Yuma because I was concerned about the depletion of the water out there. The same thing in the Big Sandy. We turned down a power plant because it was going to drain the Big Sandy. So, moving forward, we need to, in my opinion, look at renewable energy. It's been 10 years since I was on the commission when we passed renewable energy standard, and look at expanding it.
Andy, what do you think?
Yeah, well, the world's round too, Ted. I mean, we live here, we create some of these issues that will obviously heat up downtown. We've got asphalt on the roads, we've got, so yes, there's, of course there are things that we do that'll change some of the climate.
So how do we address the issue?
Well, I think we're doing it today. I think you just heard me talk about wind. $2.2 billion is not something to be, looked at lightly. I was the deciding vote. That brings wind power, potentially other solar power. Oh, it's 500 miles. It's a big, big deal. As you look forward, what we have is the EPA, however, who through their wonderful decisions has polluted the Animas River. To what end that will ever recover. I would imagine you could conclude that that's man-created.
Do you trust the market more than you do the EPA for cleaning up the atmosphere?
I trust the private sector more than I do the EPA. You bet I do. Well, but that's not the only issue that they've been hammering on. We have, they put on such restrictions into our coal producers that were going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars, mostly hurting the poor because those are our base rates, and yet it was our own coal folks who were able to come out with something that was 70% less. And they said, oh, okay, we'll let you do that. But I mean, this is the EPA. They're not thinking about their answers here is what's going on.
Okay, we got to stop it right there, gentlemen. Each candidate will now give a 1-minute closing statement, and going in reverse order of the opening statements, we start with Tom Chabin.
Thank you, Ted. And thank you for being part and listening to this debate and being engaged as a voter. It's your ballot. It's your opportunity. No one can take this away from you. At the core issue that you face is the integrity of the commission itself, and whether or not there are going to be enough votes on the commission to open up the books at Pinnacle West and APS to know the truth of what's going on. Remember, it's a very, very critical thing when the records at APS and the Corporation Commission have been subpoenaed. So you've got two choices. Stand back and let the FBI do it, or use your ballot. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Boyd Dunn now with the next closing statement.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you for watching. As you can probably perceive with this debate, we have some issues in the Corporation Commission. And I think it's important to look at what each candidate can bring to the Corporation Commission. Being a former judge, being mayor of the fourth largest city, I've dealt with these issues in terms of consumer protection, rates, and those type of things. And these issues to some degree are going to be resolved, I think, with the help of the court currently. And I think there's going to be a possibility of settlement with APS that we can cure this issue for the future. Obviously, 2014 was an issue in itself, but we need to move forward with our vision and need to move forward in terms of correcting these issues with the Corporation Commission. And I thank you for your vote.
All right, thank you very much. For our next closing statement, we turn to Andy Tobin.
Thanks, Ted. So, we have a water crisis out there, and the Corporation Commission's responsible for it. For decades, we've had no real small water company policy until here just recently. On top of that, we are starting to see the legislature actually join in helping us with emergency water relief for some of these small companies out there. I'll give you a few names. Some of these companies you might not recognize are in Citrus Park. They're in places like north of Kingman. They're in Sanders, which is close to the reservation, places that we've had to rescue. These are Arizonans who have no other recourse but to have the Corporation Commission help them. We've created a water emergency team. We've cut time short already at the Corporation Commission and made it more efficient by bringing in Governor Doug Ducey's program for lean management. All this has started. Folks, I've only been at this Corporation Commission for 6 months. There's an awful lot of work to be done, but I can share with you, rural communities in Arizona have not been well served, and there needs to be a lot more attention paid to them, whether they be rural jobs in our coal facilities or other plants or somewhere. So my name's Andy Tobin. I'd love to have your vote for the Arizona Corporation Commission coming up here this month.
Thank you. Bill Mundell, now next with his closing statement.
Thank you, Ted. It doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or an independent or a Democrat or a Libertarian or a Green Party. We all pay utility bills. And we know that the utilities want to significantly raise your rates. I'm running again to protect customers from unjustified rate increases from politically powerful monopolies. I did that for 9 years, and I'd like to have the opportunity to do it again. Thank you so much for listening to us tonight, and please consider voting for Tom Chavin and Bill Mundell in November. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you very much. And our final closing statement, we turn to Bob Burns.
And if I come up short of a minute, you're going to panic.
No, you just do it. You just go right ahead.
Okay. Well, again, thanks for watching, and I am running for re-election, so obviously I'm looking forward to your vote. I'd like to talk a little bit about what I see as a plus sign at the commission, and that is the advancements in technology. I mentioned in my opening remarks that it's an exciting time here at the commission. When I was first elected, I sponsored and chaired a series of workshops, 7 workshops in all. We had over 70 presentations on all of the new in the pipeline, if you will, technology that is happening around the country. I think that the commission needs to take advantage of that for the benefit of the ratepayers and a better Arizona.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you all, candidates. Thank you for watching this special election 2016 debate featuring the 5 candidates for the Arizona Corporation Commission's 3 contested seats. Keep watching Arizona Horizon for debates and political coverage in this important election year. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Thank you, Ted.
From the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.